In other words, we've come to a place that we realize that like we're not living the way that we're supposed to. That should have an emotional reaction to it. And by that, I'm gonna cry out to God and be like, God, like I need your help in this. I need you to change these defects of character. I need you to help me change these old ways that I've been carrying around with me my whole entire life. The fun and games are over. Get serious, really serious. Like I don't think any of us in this room are getting any younger, y'all. All right, so our James series, we've kind of been going through the whole book of James. I imagine like James writing as a parent maybe that's a little frustrated with their kids, and we want them to do the right thing, and we just want the best for them, but they're not quite getting it. So we got to be a little more stern and direct with them. That's kind of how I imagine God using James to speak to us. That first set of scriptures in there starts out with verse 2. You desire, but you do not have, so you kill. You covet, but you cannot get what you want, so you quarrel and fight. You do not have because you do not ask God. And when you ask, you do not receive because you ask with wrong motives, that you may spend what you get on your pleasures. So God created all of us, and he created us with innate, feelings and features. And so wanting something or desiring something isn't necessarily bad until it's taken to a level that it shouldn't be taken to. You understand? There's many things that God created us with, don't have time to unpack it. That feeling in and of itself isn't necessarily bad, but when we take it to a level it shouldn't be taken to, then it becomes wrong, right? And it overtakes us. And then that want or desire turns into something that it shouldn't, and we do things out of character to get it. You follow me? Like, I want to get high, and I don't care who's standing in my path. I don't care who I have to lie to, manipulate, steal from, my family, my kids. I don't care about none of them. Like, I want to get high. So my desire has overtaken me to a point where now I'm causing havoc and wreaking chaos in other people's lives as a result of it. And so it's saying in this first part, it's saying you do not have because you do not ask God. And when you ask, you do not receive because you ask with wrong motives, that you may spend what you get on your pleasures. One reason that we don't get what we ask for is maybe because some of the stuff that we're going after, we know deep down that we can't ask God for these overtaking desires because they are in direct conflict with the way that he wants us to live. Imagine if our prayers were God, like, I really need to get high today, Lord. So if you could just make a way for me to get some money and make the dope dealer pick up and be at the time when I need them, right? I really can use a good fix in Jesus' name. Amen. God, I just want to be rich, Lord. Like, I want so much money so I could just throw it in people's faces that don't have anything and let them know that I'm superior to them. In Jesus' name, amen. Right? We can't pray that type of stuff. So this is real good and telling us right here already that the reason you don't have because you don't ask. Well, some of the stuff we're going after, we can't even ask God for if we're being real, because we know it's not lining up with his will and his desire for our life. So again, you have not because you ask not. And we're not asking for the right reasons, the right motive. So number one, this is what I want us to get. God hits us with it. I want to wrap the back around to a positive, something we can take home with us tonight, right? Develop a belief. Guys, we got to develop a belief that when we ask God for things that line up directly with his will and plan for our life, along with the right motives, that we will get what we ask for without question, in God's way and in God's timing. Guys, we got to develop a belief that when we ask God for things that line up directly with his will and his plan for our life, along with the right motives, we'll get to that in a second, we will get what we ask for without question. Guys, I just believe wholeheartedly that when I ask God for help, he's going to help me out. At this point in my life, I just believe that when I'm asking him and pouring my heart out for something that's lining up with his will, that's something that's better in my family or better in the community or helping out other people, like I believe wholeheartedly that God's going to come through. It started out when I cried out him to get me clean and sober, please, because I don't know what I'm going to do if I stick a needle into my arm again, Lord. He answered that prayer. God, I need a job. God, I need things to come together. God, help me to stay sober. Time and time again, my prayers get answered. And so I just wholeheartedly believe that if I'm asking God for the right motive, something that lines up with his will, he is going to come through with that. Might not be exactly the way I pictured it. Might not be exactly that when I want it done, which is usually today or, tomorrow at the latest, Lord, please. But in God's perfect time and the right moment, he is going to come through and he is going to help us. I pray that you get that same belief. And then got to ask, what is our motive? What is our motive? Guys, God knows our hearts and he knows our motives when we ask for things. So maybe if we're praying in a certain area and it doesn't seem like anything's happening or we're not getting a response back, maybe we're praying for things to happen with the wrong motives. Anyone know the story of Andrew Carnegie, one of the richest men in America? He was born in the late 1800s. Anyways, he started the steel dynasty basically, but he was an immigrant, right? He came over from Scotland, and so of course he starts working as a young boy, 12 years old. His parents are putting him to work, right? He came into a bunch of different successful businesses. He invested into the railroad industry. He sold bonds, and then eventually it led him to his ultimate fortune, where he basically pioneered the steel industry out of Pittsburgh Steelers. With me, right? And so this guy amassed a fortune, y'all. And when he finally sold his company, sold to a banker in 1901 for $480 million. Which in today's money, ready for this? $17 billion. You talk about inflation from 1901 to 2024. So 480 million equals $17 billion. The number 999 million, add one more million and that's 1 billion. He had 17 of those. Want to talk about inflation and the hardships of that? You can check out our video on YouTube that we just dropped this past Monday. We addressed that because that's hard for a lot of us right now. Anyone in early recovery, I encourage you to go watch a video on our YouTube channel this past Monday. But here's what I love about Andrew Carnegie. After he amassed that fortune, in his later years after that, he went and basically gave away roughly 75% of that fortune that he amassed to organizations, to churches, to nonprofits, right? That's estimated at $13 billion in today's money that he gave away. Wow. When he died, they found a sheet of paper in his desk where he had written down a number of goals. And one of them said, I want to spend half of my life amassing as much money as possible. And I want to spend the second half of my life giving it all away. What a goal. What a goal. I'm sure when he brought that to God in prayer, God was like, no problem. I got you. I'm taking you straight to the top, brother. Because I know you're going to do some amazing good with this work, right? With this blessing that God was going to drop in his life. Do I think that God is going to help someone to get seriously wealthy that has a heart like that? You better believe it. I do. For sure. Will God help someone to get wealthy that wants to keep every dime for themselves? I don't know. Some people out there that do it. I don't know. Right? But I hope that we can leave here with this tonight, right? That we just have this belief that wholeheartedly that God is going to come through when we ask him for help. Maybe you got to go back to, maybe you haven't had a lot of God activity at this present moment up to your life, but you got to know, God came through, we got you sober today, right? You're in this room, you got 24 hours clean and sober. God just did a miracle in your life, and he's going to be there to help you through the other things that are coming down the pike also. Guys, we got to believe that when we ask, we will receive it. And when we ask with the right motives and we ask for things that line up with his will and plan and purpose for our life, I promise you God is going to answer that prayer. All right, this is a fact. He is going to come through for us. God's a gentleman. He continues to explain how this principle works in the upcoming verses here. That if we ask for the wrong motives or things outside of his will and plan for our own advantage, that may be a reason that's blocking us. I'm going to read this next set of scripture, verses 4 and 6. This comes from the Message version. Like the Message version was blaring on some of this scripture, y'all. This is what it says. You're cheating on God. If all you want is your own way, flirting with the world every chance you get, you end up enemies of God and his way. And do you suppose that God doesn't care about that? The proverb has it that he's a fiercely jealous lover. And what he gives in love is far better than anything else that you'll find. It's common knowledge that God goes against the willful proud and he gives grace to the willing humble. In other words, a famous verse from the NIV, God opposes the proud but shows favor to the humble. My. Powerful words tonight, y'all. You're cheating on God. If all you want is your own way, flirting with the world every chance you get, you end up enemies of God and his way. Like, in other words, like you can't be 1 foot in and 1 foot out. You can't be like about God on Sundays, but we're about everything else we want to do the other 6 days a week, right? Guys, this is the equivalent of someone being sober, but not doing anything at all to change the old person. Think about that. Someone that just shows up and says, well, I'm just going to try to make it through another day without using drugs or alcohol, right? But I'm not going to go to the meetings. I'm not going to do any of the 12 steps. I'm not going to live by any of those personal principles. I'm going to be the same old person. I'm just not going to drink or use today. Think about that. That's in direct clash with what the program teaches, right? The program teaches that we have to come to a place where we have the willingness to say, I don't have it all figured out, right? I need some work on things in my life. And because I made a mess of my life, then I'm going to turn to God and I'm going to turn to this instruction manual, the 12 steps on how to change my life. And I'm going to be willing to analyze myself and be real and truthful. Think about that. If we don't do what that says, we're going directly against what the program tells us to do. So it's the same thing for God. When we operate in our selfish desires and an I run the show attitude, it shouldn't be real surprising that God is not a fan of that. God needs something from us tonight. He needs an all-in mentality. That's what he's saying. Don't do this halfway stuff. Like, I need all of it from you, right? I need you to be all in for God, all in for your sobriety, all in for life change. The all-in mentality will produce a far better result than anything else that we attempt to do in our life, I rest assure you. Number two on the back, no more being okay with worldly ways, selfish desires, and a we run the show attitude, y'all. No more half in and half out. All in always produces the better result. God opposes the proud, but shows favor to the humble. I hope this is changing tonight, guys. We can't be okay with worldly ways, selfish desires, and an I run the show attitude, because that's what got us in this mess in the first place, right? We need to be all into the opposite direction, right? Guys, we gotta go all in and we'll produce the better result, and we gotta know that God opposes the proud, but shows favor to the humble. Be humble. Sit down. I love this next part. Like, how are we going to be humble? Don't I say if you say you're humble, like you're not humble? You got to talk to people about it and tell them how humble you are. Interesting how it finishes up that same set of scriptures. It says, do you think that God doesn't care that we're not all in? Proverbs says that he's a fiercely jealous lover. Uh-oh. I try to always bring, it's obviously impossible to fully understand God, right? Because some people come to me and say, well, I don't understand this whole God thing. I say, great, neither do I. If we understood the whole God thing, then we would be God. I wouldn't need God, because I would have it all figured out on how everything works and how we're supposed to do everything, right? But we just keep trying to learn and get with God for wisdom, knowledge, and discernment until the day that we leave this earth. So I always try to bring God into the level of relationships. Right? Always bringing God to a relationship level helps me to comprehend God a little bit with my finite mind. And so all I know is this. My wife is not going to be cool with me being halfway committed to our marriage. I promise you that. She's not going to be fond of getting just part of my time and attention. She's not going to be a great fan of me putting all these things on more of a higher priority than she is. She's okay with God and taking care of myself being over her on the priority list, but that's about it. Other than that, she wants to be third on that list. She wants to make sure I give her my time, effort, and energy, and I give it to her always, right? And I can tell you this, she might not leave me, right? If that doesn't happen, but I can guarantee you that the relationship is never going to be as good as it could be if I put her in her proper priority spot and I gave her my time and attention. I loved her the way that she deserves to be loved, right? Think about that. So what's the point? Well, if I'm in a relationship, being proud is saying this relationship is all about me. This relationship is all about what you can do for me. How I feel in the relationship because of what you're doing or what you're not doing. This is my rights, right? Oh, my rights have been violated because my wife didn't do this and she didn't do that. And it's always going to be about how I feel in this relationship. What can you do for me? That's being proud, right? Being humble in my relationship is saying that my wife is a high priority and I need to show her that. I need to put her wants and needs over mine. I need to ask myself every day, what can I put into this relationship, not what am I going to get out of this relationship? So that tells me when we're reading there that God opposes the proud but shows favor to the humble, it's the same way with God, right? Like, this isn't about us and what God needs to do for us and what's God going to do for me today when I get into this prayer this morning, right? No, this is about what can we put into this relationship. How can we go to God and be humble enough to say, you know what, I don't have this all figured out and I need your help, Lord. Let God know that this halfway in, halfway out living is not the way for us. God, we're all in. God, I'm ready to acknowledge that I need you, right? I'm ready to say, what can I put into this relationship? How can I help others around me? Not always think about myself and what I need and how I'm affected by this. And God, I'm going to say we are all in. Let's go. This is an all-in mentality that all of us need to adopt, going after God's sobriety and a better life on a daily basis. Next set of scriptures on there, verse 7 to 10. We're just going to keep it going with the Message version because, you know what I mean? It just explains it so beautifully. Starts out in verse 7. So let God work his will in you. Yell aloud no to the devil and watch him make himself scarce. Say a quiet yes to God and he'll be there in no time. Quit dabbling in sin. Purify your inner life. Quit playing the field. Hit bottom and cry your eyes out. The fun and games are over. Get serious, really serious. Get down on your knees before the master. It's the only way you'll get on your feet. My goodness, that Message version hits sometimes, boy. Think about that. It says, let God work his will in you. Yell aloud no to the devil. Watch him make himself scarce. Say a quiet yes to God and he'll be there in no time. In other words, resist the devil and he will flee from you. Doesn't matter what temptation or what obstacle is coming in our life. We got God on our side. I need to invite God into this and say, God, what do I need to learn from this? Help me to get through this. There's whatever temptation I'm facing at this present moment. God, I know you can help me to overcome it. Quit dabbling in sin. Purify your inner life. Stop doing the same old thing over and over again. Cry out to God and ask him for help with this process. When it says hit bottom and cry your eyes out, in other words, we've come to a place that we realize that like we're not living the way that we're supposed to. That should have an emotional reaction to it. And by that, I'm going to cry out to God and be like, God, like, I need your help in this. I need you to change these defects of character. I need you to help me change these old ways that I've been carrying around with me my whole entire life. The fun and games are over. Get serious, really serious. Like, I don't think any of us in this room are getting any younger, y'all. I'm at 41. I got 42 in a few months. Like I said in the men's group, I feel like I'm going to turn around and be 60 soon, man. It just goes by so quick every single day. Guys, we're not getting any younger. Like the time for playing around with this is over. Get down on your knees before the master. It's the only way you'll get on your feet. My goodness. When I read that, I went right into my Bible, and my daughter, man, she gave me this bookmark when she was in kindergarten, I believe, and she was at Woodland, and man, it just like spoke to me directly. It meant so much to me that she gave me this, and I carried it around in my Bible ever since. This bookmark says, "Men who kneel before God stand before anyone." I love that. Men who kneel before God stand before anyone. Guys, we got to realize this is no longer a game. Number three on the back. This is no longer a game. This is serious business. It's time to rely on God to get us through any temptation. Admitting our weaknesses and our need for reliance on God will make us some of the strongest people that anyone has ever met. You can get excited for this, man. This is no longer a game. This is serious business. We can rely on God to get us through any temptation. I guarantee you that. Talk about in a second. But when we admit our weaknesses and our need for reliance on God, it will actually make us some of the strongest people that anyone has ever met. Isn't that funny? Isn't that funny? Like what we learned like through our recovery, that God it's almost like he did us a favor. He allowed us to make all those wrong choices to be able to get to a point to have a wake-up call when I realized that finally, I'm weak, I can't do this. And now suddenly God's going to use that and say, great realization. Now I'm going to help you be the strongest person you ever seen in your entire life. Let's go. And yes, we can overcome any temptation. I've said this a few times before, but I just felt led to put it out there again, man. We'll just start with the drug and alcohol temptation, and you can take what we're talking about and put it towards anything else. And so I don't expect that all of us have this magic overnight, we're cured, we never think about it again. I never thought about drugs and alcohol ever since I've been sober. That is an incorrect statement for me. I still have a passing thought that comes around here or there. But all I can say is in those moments, if 51% of you wants to be sober, more than 49% of you wants to use, you'll do one of three things. I'm going to go over them quickly. First is you'll ask God to help you out. If you get that thought and that desire to use, but just a little more you wants to be sober than wants to use, God, please take this thought for a drink or drug out of my head. God, please, I do not want to do this again. I know what's going to happen if I take a hit, stick a needle in my arm, take a drink, whatever it is for you, fill in the blank. But God, I know the chain of events that is going to set off. And God, I don't want to go back there. I don't want to lose everything. I don't want to hit the reset button again. So I'm asking you, I need your help right now in this present moment. Pray that prayer from a desperate heart. You're going to feel something off it, I promise you. Right? 2 is pick up the phone and let someone else know where you're at. Speak to someone else in recovery and say, man, I am having these thoughts. I am not feeling right. I'm thinking about going back out. And you run that by someone that's been in recovery long enough that I guarantee you after that 10 or 15 minute conversation, you're not going to want to pick up anymore. I promise you. It's just a thought. They're going to talk you through it. The thought's not going to be there after the phone call's over. Right? And then next, think it through. Think it through. Yeah, it sounds great to do one. I'm sure we're all going to get really high with no tolerance. But then what's going to happen after that? Then it's all I'm going to be thinking about. And I got to get more. And I got to hide it from everybody and make sure no one else finds out about it. And then eventually it's going to take over. I'm going to lose all my money, my job, my house, my cars, my standing in the community. My organizations are over. Doesn't sound like a great idea anymore, does it? And so those three things, right? I pray that maybe that just saves someone a relapse here tonight. But man, you can use those for any temptation that you'll encounter. I guarantee it. I want to step out on my wife. God, please. I'm not saying I do. I'm just throwing out a scenario. Bonnie. I love Bonnie. I want to cheat on someone. Okay, God, please take this thought for another person out of my head. I only want to think about the person I'm with. Pick up the phone, let someone that's trusted know what I'm thinking about. They can talk me through it. Think about the chain of events that's going to happen afterwards. Suddenly doesn't sound like a good idea again. Fill in the blank with whatever temptation you want to put in there. Right? Those are three ways that we can overcome it by inviting God into it. All right? And then what it says on there, take this serious, man. The games are over. Like, I guarantee you, sometimes we make this so complicated. I got to stay here tonight, right? We make this so complicated on ourselves. And I'm talking to myself. I got 100-something relapses. I made it complicated too. But man, if we're so serious about getting high though, bro, like, you know we are. Like, we take it like it's a game. Like when we're out there, like we're like king of the street, like we make it happen by any means necessary. Y'all can look at me like that, but you know it's true. Right? You make it happen, man. You take it serious. Imagine if we took that same effort and energy and we put it into going after our sobriety. We say it every week, but think about it. Like, I'm not taking no for an answer. I'm tired of losing. I'm going to be willing to do whatever it takes this time to never go back out again. Guaranteed success. I guarantee you. If we took it as serious, right? Think about this. I hope to save someone's life tonight, man. This last one on there, verse 13, says, now listen, you who say, today or tomorrow we will go to this or that city, spend a year there, carry on business and make money. Why, you do not even know what will happen tomorrow. What is your life? You are a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes. Instead, you ought to say, if it is the Lord's will, we will live and do this or that. For a lot of people say, man, God, I'll see you tomorrow. God willing, they say. But I think it's one of those subjects that, again, we could take in two different directions, right? And so we talk about, like, obviously it's referring to, like, if we're in charge, right? I'm in charge of life. I don't need to consult God about anything. I'm going to make the plan. I'm going to say everything that's going to happen. It's saying right here that might not work out so well. We only have a limited amount of time on this earth. Don't think too much of yourself, because the world's still going to spin if one of us leaves here, right? But at the same time, it talks again and again in the Bible, without vision, the people perish. We need a direction for our life. I think one of the biggest mistakes is coming into recovery for me so many times is I just thought it was about staying sober, and if I could just hold on for a little while and everything would start magically changing. No, like it wasn't until God put people in my life that said, no, we got to have some type of direction. Like, what are you moving towards? What are you going after, right? We need to invite God into this conversation and see what things line up with God's will and start going after those. And so I feel like too many people get caught up in making the plan, not inviting God into the plan, then telling God what the plan's going to be and asking him to bless it. And then wonder why it's not working out and I'm not getting any results from this prayer, right? Man, that can cause someone to get defeated. That can cause someone to want to give up. And that can be a stumbling block for some. So I hope we address this here tonight. Like, can you imagine if we invited God to be a part of this plan? Can you imagine if the prayer was like, God, I know I need direction in my life. I'm asking you to give me a vision. I'm asking you to tell me what your purpose and plan is for my life. What are some goals that I can set that line up with your will? And I just want to go after, and I just want to be everything I can down here on this earth. Right? Every purpose, every plan that you had for me, Lord, I want to be a part of every single one of those. What would happen if we asked God to give us the vision and help us to set those goals up? Number 4, the last one on there. We must invite God into the process of setting a vision and goals for our life. And when our goals line up with God's will, we will become unstoppable. This is the key to walking in our full and true purpose in this short time on this earth. Think about this. We have not because we ask not. Maybe we haven't had any real success, or we haven't had some of those prayers answered because we're not asking God for help to set the vision and to set these goals up that are lining up in accordance with his will. So we know that it's going to come true, like we just heard, when we do it like that. Guys, we need to ask God for the plan. God, what's the vision? God, what should I be striving for every single day? And I'm telling you, when we do that, watch out. Watch out. We are some unstoppable people. We already discussed we're an unstoppable force to be reckoned with when we go the other way. So we put that same effort and energy over here, and God's going to take off with that and be like, oh, you're admitting you're weak. You're admitting you don't have it all figured out. Great. I'm going to use that in a major way. Stand up. Let's go. Right? Oh, God's saying, you want to invite me into this process with you? I'll give you a great vision, son. I'll give you some great goals, daughter. I got you. Let me start revealing pieces of the plan to you and start to take you there. Guys, nothing is going to stop us when we approach life like this. You got to start seeing yourself the way that God sees you. Freed us from the slavery of addiction, bless us in so many ways.
Like it talks about in the Bible, that unity that's going to bring people to Christ.
When you pray those prayers from a place of desperation, no matter what is going on in my life, God has this covered.